Hello, everyone. So this is an introduction to color grading for photographers who do any kind of photography, really. But in this case, there's a specific application that I'm trying to do here. So let's say, for example, I'm doing a whole bunch of photographs. In this case, I'm doing a series of photographs on houses in Victoria, let's say. And so I'm going to put them on a wall, and there's going to be several of them, let's say 10 or 12 photographs. And this one here has some nice tones in it that I like. I like the grass and the leaves and the sky and the sort of late afternoon sun. And not that I'm trying to replicate this in other photographs. What I'm trying to do is just take a few of the tones from here and put them onto other photographs. So when they hang on the wall, they have a similar look, but they don't look the same. And this is what color grading is. It's what they do in the movies to create a tone throughout the whole movie that is representative of the mood that the director wants to accomplish. So I'm going to use some techniques that are given by a young man. His name is Anmish Dinda. He has a great site. Most of his stuff is fashion stuff, but a lot of color grading is. I'm particularly like this one here, steal the color grading from any image within Photoshop. And what he means by that is that we can take this photograph or any photograph, a web photograph, photograph your friend's given you to look at, someone's photograph off their website. You're not stealing anything from anybody. You're only taking the tones from that photograph that you like that you want to move over to another image. Or in this case, we're taking a photograph from a photograph I took and put it across a series of images that I like and I want to create a particular look. Now, there's a person that's done this, and her name is Shirley Gordon Eddy. And I saw her in Brentwood in a show that she did. I think the one that she did that I saw was in Inuvik. Yeah, this is the one I think that I saw. Here we go. And notice that all of her photos have similar tones across, even though you have some very bright tones like in this photograph here. It is. So this photograph here, even though it has these bright tones, there's similar tones in the sky and the grass. Even in this one, see how there's some of the tones were picked up, maybe the reds and the blues from that previous photo. Again. And so things just have a similar look all the way across. Some of her stuff I find a little bit overdone for me, but let's just see. We'll find another one here. There we go. Here's something that's more subdued. So we have something like this, and notice that the tones are similar even when we come to this bridge in terms of the saturation and everything else in it. Now, she would have had to make some further adjustments besides just the color toning to create these, maybe like a levels adjustment or a curves adjustment of some kind, and you may find you have to do the same as well. There are many ways to color tone an image. You can work within Lightroom and just use your hue, saturation, luminance sliders to create an image, and then copy all of those settings that you had from that image to another image, and that's usually not very successful, but it is a preset that sort of helps you get along that way. Within Photoshop, again, we're going to be creating from color swatches. We're going to be creating that were taken from a photograph. We're going to create a gradient map, and that gradient map is going to map certain tones in additional photographs to get this sort of a situation that we were trying to accomplish here. There's other ways. In Photoshop, you can use selective color. There's a person who has a great course on Creative Live, so that's creativelive.com. You can look it up. This course is 2 hours. It's primarily on fashion photography, but she does go through the way she color grades in Lightroom, and she states quite categorically that that's not really the best way to do it. But then she moves into 3 different ways that she accomplishes this in Photoshop, and the one that she prefers is using selective color. So selective color is an adjustment layer that we use, just like the gradient map is an adjustment layer, and curves and levels and so on. So this is her way of doing it, and it's very interesting to watch because she shows how simply she can use just 2 lights and a model and a background, and she can just achieve all kinds of things you just wouldn't believe. But it's very much something that is would work for the same purpose we're doing, if that's what a person likes. But I like this particular method, and so this is what I'm going to show. But you can look at this. This course is not that expensive. It's about $29 for 2 hours, and highly recommended. So there's just a few other things I like to talk about in terms of what color grading is and its uses and everything. It's quite different from the what's happening within the film industry, because the film industry uses these color tables, or LUTs as they're called, and they have several different formats that you can call them. They're different, like a .3D L LUT or a .LOOK dot cube and so on, and you'll see those in Photoshop and under the adjustment layer. And there's other ways to color grade a photo within Photoshop or Lightroom, which is different than just importing something from somewhere. In Lightroom, you can adjust your photo and create a preset and apply this to other photos. It can be done by utilizing the basic panels, white balance, and tone controls, as well as the HSL panel. In Photoshop, what's preferred are the hue saturation adjustment layer and the selective color adjustment layer, where you can access all the different color tones from red to magenta. But the selective color tone is better, as the fashion industry likes, because it includes the whites, neutrals, and blacks. When they're looking at a backdrop, or just whether the shadows or the lights or the darks are and neutrals are being adjusted. But I think what's important to talk about is the difference between gradient map versus color lookup tables. And both LUTs and gradient maps, they both can use the blend modes, opacity slider in Photoshop, and so that seems to make them equal. But just because someone made the LUT, you really don't have any idea about what process was used in the original photo it came from, or even what that photo looked like. In Photoshop, the LUT has to be at the top of the layers panel, and it's not an adjustment layer in the way that curves or hue saturation or any other layer are, and that the only adjustments you can make to it are in the blend modes and the opacity slider. In Photoshop, compared to film editing software, it's a rather hit and miss approach. It's not much better than really a preset in Lightroom. Photoshop does not easily emulate the workflow or process capable in dedicated film software, which has all of this stuff integrated in a way that they can work things on the fly. And also, in terms of Photoshop, with a gradient map, you know all about the original photo you used to generate the gradient map, including the adjustments you made in Lightroom. And that's sort of in your mind as your workflow, so that you kind of take it from Lightroom into Photoshop. Then you know what your adjustments were. You can create some other adjustments. You can apply a gradient map. And what's really nice about the gradient map is that it can be put anywhere within the adjustment layers. So you can bring in your photo. You can adjust it a bit more, like, and then maybe you might want to bring in the gradient map to see how that works, and then you might want to see, maybe I'll take away some of those other layers. I might want to add some layers on top of that, and it's just a great flow in Photoshop. And I think that's what we have to think about is how the workflow is and how that all works. You can open the gradient editor at any time and add colors, subtract colors, move colors along the scale, change the range of a color, and save your changes as an additional gradient map. So it's a huge advantage. So even though you think you've got it close, and because really this is for putting in a book or putting on a wall somewhere, so you want to make sure that you're creating something that's not taking away from the image that's there, but it's making it look so it belongs in some way. And I think that's the most important thing. But I think in photography, it really makes a lot of sense. It's a very different process, and Photoshop handles it well. And if you are comfortable with layers and all these sorts of things, then it's really a wonderful process. So just in summary, we're going to be taking some color tones from this, using by exporting a web file from this and selecting some colors from the web file to create some sample colors. And those sample colors will be used to create a gradient map, and the gradient map will be used to try to emulate some of the tones in this photograph to additional photographs that we have that we want to create the same look in a book or in on a for display on a wall in a gallery or wherever you want to be. Okay, thanks so much.